Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, and I'm feeling pretty good today. It's been all right this week. Don't hate everything. I'm not really tired or anything, so all of that feels pretty good. And as usual, I'm always happy to be here on stream. This is my favorite part of the day every day. Good morning, Coach Bear and Kevin Evans, and Select the Gang. Man, I don't like that. Select the Gang. When you were TeamView Select, it was easier to call you like TeamView, but I can't call you Gang because that's like the gang. What am I going to call you now? I guess it's Select. I guess we'll go with Select. I don't know. I don't know the right thing to refer to you there, but it's good to see you, man. Hope things are going well. Hope you're doing some school and all that stuff too. As I posted in the title of this session, we are going to get Alexa to ask us our first trivia question today. And if we're really aggressive about it, we might even be able to get Alexa to answer us. Or at least let us know that we got the correct answer. So that's a bigger step. I think getting the question to be asked is pretty easy. I think getting Alexa to know that we gave the right answer is a little trickier, only because we're going to use something called dynamic entities. It's not hard. It's actually surprisingly easy, but we will need to do that in order to funnel the question to the user. Good morning, Artrin. I got to watch some of the most mind-blowing Minecraft I've ever seen. If you guys play Minecraft at all, I don't spend a ton of time in Minecraft, but I'm certainly familiar enough with it, and I've played it over time. But some of the stuff that Artrin was doing this weekend blew my mind. He had gearboxes and storage boxes and conveyor belts and all sorts of cool stuff. It was pretty amazing. Stuff I had never seen before. And he said it was there's some add-ons that you can put in there to do that kind of stuff. But I was blown away. I was enthralled. So it was pretty cool to watch. And thanks for the barking dog. I think the Postal Service and UPS and everybody's getting caught up because we haven't gotten morning deliveries for quite a while, and it feels like lately we're getting a bunch more. Anyway, I can hear my wife whispering to the dog that's barking, "Shh, please be quiet." It's fine. I think we all recognize that we're all working from home, and this is how it goes sometimes. And if you hear a barking dog, you hear a barking dog. I love my dog, but man, she does not want anyone to come in this house. She's not aggressive. She's actually she just wants to lick them to death. She's really friendly. But it would be nice if she would just shut up sometimes when the doorbell rings. Okay, so let's get into this. I have where we left off yesterday. We left off with a database, and I actually populated it earlier this morning with the questions that I had in the old database. Since I've only moved some of the data over, we'll worry about some of those other fields that I had. If you look at the old version, I have voice. Over here I've rearranged them. Card question, card answer, screen answer. And then notes as well as like event stuff. Don't care about any of that right now. We'll get there eventually. But for now, we have voice question and voice answer note. And this is where we give them interesting things about the answer once you get it correct or incorrect. So, and then we also have synonyms for the correct answer as well as images. So our first step is to, as we started doing yesterday, we built a question intent where we can say things like, let's try sports, or give me history, or whatever. I think those are old errors, but I think we are all built in good. I should verify that just to make sure that this is all working properly. But we have these kinds of things where we can basically say to the skill, hey, give me a question from this category. And we should have a mechanism where people can then receive a question. So while that's building, we won't worry about that for now. Let's go look at how that actually works. So we called that the question intent, and I don't have an intent for that yet. So we need to build the rigging for that. So we'll take this repeat intent, and we'll just drop this here, and we'll call this question intent handler. And this here will become question intent. So we have our intent name is question intent. We know it's an intent request, and then we need a new handler called question intent. And then down here at the bottom, we'll also add, I should probably move this a little higher in the stack. Question intent handler. If you didn't know when using this SDK, the order that you present these items here, I tend to try to keep everything alphabetical in most of my files. So when we go look at my handlers index, for example, you'll see that they're in alphabetical order. I do that because it makes it easy to find them. But this specific collection right here, this is the order in which it looks at the handlers to verify whether or not it's a match. And so these don't get the luxury of being alphabetical because they actually have a meaningful priority. And there really ends up being batches of groups. I have the most important things, like the most likely thing you're going to hit is a launch request. I tend to keep that very high. But the other active handlers that you may hit are things like question intent or answer intent. And then things that are less likely, I move those further down in the stack. Things like cancel stop or repeat. You're going to use them, but not nearly as often as the others. And then the last one is always my intent reflector. This is if it hits nothing else, then this is really an error for me to be like, hey, by the way, you don't have an intent handler for whatever you just tried to do. So in my question handler, I think I have all of this set up. The next step is to create a question intent handler. So we're going to go right in here, and we're doing this in the wrong order. Normally I would build it first and then I would add it to this file, but I think it's okay to do it this way. And so we'll call it question intent. I call it request here. That's weird. Intent. And we're going to take that and we'll bring it right down here in alphabetical order as one does. And then this is saved, that's saved. And then inside our handlers folder, we need a new one called question intent. So this question intent is ultimately going to be a pretty simple handler. We might even look at like launch request, which for that, we're doing the first welcome stuff. Do we have any? The help intent is simpler. No, it's not. Which one do I want to use? Maybe the stop intent, not cancel. I was hoping to just have a nice template to use, but none of them are really getting what I want. So we'll use the launch request, then I'll rip some things out. So rather than write everything, we'll just do this. And we don't need this. Get rid of that. And speak output, the speech type that we want, we can change this again. This is going to be data.speechtypes. Well, actually, this isn't get random speech. This is going to be a completely different thing. So let's just go to the home on that. And what we really want to do is think about how we're getting a question from the database. This is a different table, different everything. So we'll have to be specific about that. But for now, I could just say, just so I can get the rigging and everything set up, we could say const speak output equals this. Tech with Turbinator YT. I used to program nonstop and would just be so interested in it, but then I started playing video games and just kind of started to think programming was boring. I know inside that I want to code, but I don't know how to start and stay motivated. Well, a good person to have an opinion on that would be our good friend Select here, Select the Gang. He is a student. I would imagine he has spent some time playing some video games, but he also seems to always have some interesting project going on. So one of my recommendations to you, Turbinator, is find something that you'll use. Find a piece of software that you actually think you'd play with or use. So if you're on Twitch, if you're doing any streaming, I recommend starting with a chatbot. Build something simple that allows you to have some cool interactions with your users. Right? I've gone way off the deep end with that, but I have a chatbot that is a casino, and so I can say things like poker 10. And the casino will come back and say, hey, you got 3 of a kind. Wow, I got 3 of a kind. And so I won 30 coins in the casino, right? Like this is custom software that I built that lets me engage with other people. So I think it's really important to think about what your project is and how you stay motivated with that stuff. Because you guys have seen this. Anybody that's been watching this quite a while, I tend to get burned out on a project after a while. Yeah, like a Forza Horizon 4 auction tracker. That's a great example. If Forza is something you really care about and you want to be able to monitor the prices of items in an auction for that game, I think that makes a ton of sense. But it has to be something that you would really use. And if you didn't think you'd use it or you don't see the purpose in it, it's really hard to stay motivated. And so I think it's great that you've recognized that. And now it's just a matter of I think the most fun for me in all of these software projects is the discovery and exploration. How am I going to solve this interesting problem? Like for your auction, I don't know where the things are being sold, but let's say they're being sold on eBay. Well, eBay has an API. How do I get into that? How do I dig in and find the data that I want? And then how do I visualize that in an interesting way? Like that, those are all fun, interesting problems to me. But don't get me wrong, I like playing some video games too. So I don't think that they're exclusive. And if you can find a way to mash them together, that's even better. So hopefully that's a little bit of advice for you. So let's just do this is the question intent for now. And this needs to be oh, Corey, I totally agree with you. Working with somebody on a project is the best. That's actually one of the reasons I really enjoy having all of you folks here in the chat, including you, Corey. Having someone say, hey, have you thought about this? Or have you tried this thing? It really, really helps. Question intent. And we want that to be down here at the bottom. And that should fix this file. And it does. Cool. Okay. So we have this is the question intent. That should all work pretty well. And I think our build succeeded. So that's a good sign. So we should be able to say these things to the skill now. Like I want a science question and it should work. Or I should just be able to say science. So let's go to our testing console. Make sure I'm going to the right place. And I need to flip these or I'll get confused. So this is test. And I also want to start my local debugging, so I'm working on the code that's local here on my machine. So we'll fire that up. Great, everything's running. And we should be able to say, open my game. Maybe.
This is TKO Trivia.
There we go. So what if I just say, give me a science question?
This is the question intent.
Perfect. So we've gotten to the point now where the basic plumbing is set up, and we are able to funnel in here and say this is the question intent. But obviously, we don't really want a question intent. What we want is a question. And so we need to do that next. So let's jump in here to our data folder where we get and send our data. And in here, we're going to do, we get random speech. We're going to do get random question. So this is going to have some weirdness to it. Random, get random question. Okay, and it's going to look a lot like get random speech. So I'm just going to start here. And we'll move from there. So first of all, get random question, and the speech type isn't really a thing anymore, but locale will be. So I think we can bring in a category, and we'll get to that here in a second. Let me get the basic stuff set up so we can at least use this. And we're calling out to this API. This is going to be the question table. Out here, we have some things. We don't want the question to be disabled. That's always a valid request. And if we look at our data structure, you can see that I have an is disabled column on my question. So I want to make sure that we're not choosing one where that is selected. And right now, none of them are. We want to make sure that the locale is appropriate so that it's a question that works in that locale. And for all the ENUS, we probably also would be able to include any of the other ENs, right? I don't imagine the questions would change much between different versions of English. And then we have this category, and I think it's okay. There will be times where we don't provide a category. We're just getting a random question for the user. But I think we also want to allow the user to specify what their category is. And we will eventually probably make them pay for that. That privilege. But I think for now, what we want to do is see what category it is that they've selected. So we will have a category that comes in here. Not sure exactly how I'm going to do that yet. Oh, no, I do. I know exactly how we're going to do that, actually. So let's come back here. One of the things that we need to do is get that slot value. And so as part of my helper, the original old helper file that we still need to port over at some point. One of the things that I need to get is, well, here let's look at the other code base. So in here I have the helper file. We'll blow this up, and so there's a few things in here that I use pretty readily. One of them is get spoken words. This is a function that I wrote a while ago, and it basically gets for me the spoken word that the user said for a specific slot. So in the example of give me a science question, the word science would be my slot value. And because of this, this means that I can use that to kind of speak back to the user. If they give me a category that doesn't exist, it's very easy, it's very easy for me to say, oh, we don't have a science question or a science category. But then we also have another function here called get resolved words. And what get resolved words does, it's gotten very complex. I have to actually take a look at what this does. It gets me a set of resolutions that have come back from my skill to say, hey, you know what? They said something in a slot, and you have a bunch of slot values defined. Here's the ones that I think could likely be a match for the thing that they said. And so as we looked at building our slot yesterday, here, you can see that when we look at our slot type, that they might say theater, but the resolved value is going to be art and stage. That's what's going to come back and let me know. And so I can say, the user says, give me a theater question. And I say, here's a question from Arden Stage, right? It's one way to really train them to use the right words. But it lets them know that, like, hey, this is the official name of the category. And when you're looking for it other places, maybe on a leaderboard or something like that, you're going to see art and stage. You're not going to see theater. So that is how we're going to play this. But the first thing that I need to do is know if they gave me a category and what that category is. So let's start there. We need that value to be able to pass it through to our function. So in order to do that, we need some of this. So I'm going to create these helper functions in my new project. So we have one called get spoken words. So we'll do that. In here in helper, I have, this is really just a library of little functions that do useful tasks for me. Function get spoken words, and this will take the handler input. And then we will do a module.exports get spoken words. All right, and then my index file in here needs this, so we need a get spoken words. And we need to actually bring it in. So const get spoken require get spoken. Okay. So we have get spoken words. It doesn't do anything yet. So let's go look at that previous code base and say, what are we doing here? I think this works the way I want it to, but we'll drop it in and then we'll analyze. So if handler input request envelope exists, I think we can do this another way. We had some issues with the question mark evaluators before. But I think I feel better about these now. So let's do this. And I think we can do no. Okay, so here's the reason that I can't do this. I need handler input. I also need slot name. And this is where it falls down is I don't believe the way that we use these question marks. This says return on, basically it's saying return undefined if it doesn't exist, and if it does exist, then go. Where if you don't put those question marks in and you just try to access this string of properties, it will fail. It'll say, hey, this doesn't exist, and it breaks. So what we want to do is this kind of structure. The problem is if this slot name doesn't exist, we get that same failure. But maybe I can do this like this instead. Maybe that will work for me. Because if we look at the actual interaction, here, I said, give me a science question. We should be able to see down here at the bottom that I have request.intent.slots.category. And so we want this value. So it's slots.category.value. And if we look at what we wrote in our code, we wrote slots dot the name of the slot that we're looking for, and then value. So that probably will work fine. Otherwise, we're going to return undefined. So if this whole thing doesn't come through for me, then and I'll do this to make this more obvious. Whoa. Okay. So it's declared, but its value is never read. I wholeheartedly disagree with you, but I don't pass it in. So we'll do that when I call it. So file I was just working on. Get spoken words. Why do you think that's declared, but the value is never read? It's right. It's read right here. Read right here. Okay, well, I'm just going to live with that. So get spoken words is all taken care of. So let's just close those out. And actually, I'll leave it. And let's call it and see how we use this. So what I want to do is say const category equals helper dot get spoken words handler input and category, because that's the slot that I care about. But what I'm really interested to see is what category comes back with. And we could make this easy for ourselves. If we're just bringing a string back, if category how do we want to do this? We have our category, and what we're going to need to do is basically create a sentence. So let's category production equals here is a question from the category. And then I will just put this category in production, like so. So this should at least pull the category out that they've said. Now, what this doesn't get me, and we'll have to do some conditional work on this, is what if category didn't come back? What if category wasn't indicated? They just said, give me a random question. Random isn't a category. And so what I would want to do instead is get them I'd have to go pick a random category for them. So we'll have to think about a couple of pieces in here, and we'll have to start writing some pseudocode to do so. So in fact, let's do that now. So if the user indicates a category, give them a question from that specific category. Else, if the user does not indicate a category, select a random category and give a question from that category. The other catch here is if the user indicates a category, we also have this other catch, which I won't build right away, but it is coming, which is monetization. If the user owns the category, give them the question, else offer the user the ability to purchase the category. Hey, good morning, Chris. You were asking on Twitter about cameras. And I know you used the word budget friendly, so this may not qualify, but I am using a Sony a6000 for this picture. And I will tell you, man, an SLR makes all the world of difference in video capture. It's just amazing. But it is a $600 camera, so that's something to be considered. I also have the overhead cam that I've got right here, this guy. This is a pretty good webcam. This is the Logitech Brio Also not super cheap. I think it's close to $200. But those are my two best cameras by far. And then I have a bunch of cheapy webcams all over this office, like the legendary Office Cam that we're looking at now. So that's a very cheap camera, but I don't want to for the frequency that I'm actually going to use that camera angle. It doesn't seem like that's something that I need to use very often. But there's a fuller view of where I live. So if you guys haven't seen that before, welcome to the show. Now I gotta get back to the code. We got to do the things. We got to write all the bits. So this is, if the user indicates a category, this is actually going away. If the user owns category in the question, I'll give them the ability to purchase the category. That's our pseudocode for now. Yeah, this is pretty cool to have a private office like this that has a bit of space and I can spread out. And I've got a desk that I can sit at and all the toys and nonsense. Chris, when you get into a house, I know you said you're shopping. I would love to see a horror-themed version of this room. I know you're way into the horror stuff. I am not nearly as much. I never really got into horror things, although I do enjoy a few series of the horror movies. I really, really loved at least the first couple of iterations of Saw. And I like Scream and some of that stuff, but I never really got into like the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare Before Elm Streets and stuff like that. Even though those came out right at a time when I should have cared about that, I just never did. And so now, like, I don't know that I've ever even seen a full Friday the 13th or Nightmare Before Elm Street movie. I've definitely seen parts of the first of each, but I don't think that I've ever seen a whole movie. It just, for whatever reason, that's not something I've gone crazy with. But I certainly appreciate them for the entertainment. But man, I really did love like the first Saw. Like that blew my mind. I thought that was a great movie. Anyway, there we are talking about movies. So here's a question from the category. So we'll just leave this for now. And this should tell me what category I indicated. So let's do it. If I come back in here and I say, give me a science question.
This is the question intent.
Cool. There's something with local debugging that just doesn't get it for me. Like I've done all the things. I changed all the code, but it doesn't seem to notice that, and I don't really know why.
Here is a question from the undefined category.
Okay.
This is the question intent.
Okay, so if we look at what's going on here, down here at the bottom, you can see that I have a category value that is science. So the thing is coming through, and we're also getting a resolution for a specific match in my database. And I'm going to need all of this because I need this. This is a unique database ID that refers to a specific category. So you can see that I have these record IDs that are sitting right here. These are unique identifiers. Scream 5 is coming out. That's pretty awesome. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that whole series. My kids are old enough now. My son's 12. My daughter's 17 or almost 17. And between the two of them, I don't think they've ever seen much of a scary movie, but I think they would really dig it. I don't think they're opposed to it or anything. Another one I really enjoyed, if we're talking about horror movies, is Cabin in the Woods. Have you guys seen that one? Big fan. I thought that was a very clever take on a horror movie as well. So, okay, so I'm going to need those unique identifiers. Wow. I think I'm going to have to turn Nightbot off. I put that in there just because I wanted to try some stuff. And wow, that's crazy. Yeah, Nightbot's going to have to go away, I think. Like, I don't need that kind of moderation. I'm sure once this channel gets crazy, like if we had hundreds of people all chatting at the same time, I could see that being an issue. But yeah, Cabin in the Woods is pretty good. So I guess I have seen some horror movies, but I know I'm not on your level for sure, Chris. Okay, so we got undefined, not science. So let's take a look at our, I made some changes to it and didn't really give much thought to how this was working. So if we look at get spoken words, if this stuff all exists, okay, this is why I'm doing it as an array, is because I have to do this as an array. Let's back this all the way up, because I know that version works. And working code is better than not working code, in my opinion. And then we can do this. And then we'll return undefined. So I would bet this time I will get the response that I want, because now we're actually getting that value.
It appears our trivia questions are better.
Maybe not.
Whoops. It looks like one of our programmers broke something. I will let them know and have them fix it as soon as possible. In the meantime, you can always ask for a random question or start a new quiz, right?
All right, one more time.
Here is a question from the science category. This is the question intent.
Perfect. Okay, so we now know what category they asked for, and we kind of give it back to them. One of the other things that I'd like to do, and I need to figure out where I did this, or where I stored these. Let's go look at my S3 bucket for a second. I have sound effects that I created for, come on. There we go. I have sound effects that I created for or purchased for each of the categories. And so I wonder if I have those in here. Audio. Yeah, look at that. So if I have like art, well, let's do art and stage. I don't know if you can, I don't think you can probably play it from here, maybe. Just these nice little 3-second intros to the different categories. So what I want to do when I do this is take this URL, copy link address, and if we think about our categories, we ought to be able to say something like, I don't think I'm going to do this here. I don't think this needs to be in the database. I mean, it doesn't hurt to store it here, but I don't think I'm actually going to retrieve it from here. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me talk with all of you about what I'm trying to do. So I have my question intent. There are a few pieces to my speech, and I guess we can segment them out here if we do this. So the first thing is sound effect. The second is category introduction. Like, here's a question from the science category, right? It's a way to prep you for, hey, the question is coming. Then we have the question. Then salt and burn them. That's a great question. Yes, I am technically streaming during work hours. Here's the catch with this. I'm streaming during work hours as part of my job. Part of my job is to keep on top of the latest trends in voice development. And you have to build things to do that. So the justification that I have, and that I have a very nice arrangement with my employer, is that instead of sitting at my desk and coding for 2 hours a day, I'm standing at this desk and coding for 2 hours a day in public. So the reason I'm here is because I want to build stuff. I could build stuff privately. I could turn this whole stream off and just go do that somewhere else. But I felt like there's something for me to learn by having all of you watch me. And there's something for all of you to learn by watching what I'm doing. You might say, oh, you know what? I didn't realize how easy this voice stuff is. Or, man, that's an interesting way to solve that problem I hadn't considered, because I'm not always traditional in my approaches. So that's how I'm doing this during work hours. This is most certainly part of my job, staying on top of what's going on in coding and building skills and thinking about voice deeply. The other side of it is who owns the code you are writing. Technically, the way this is structured, Amazon would own this code. That being said, I've had conversations with our lawyers, and when I publish a skill, I need their permission to officially make it mine. So building anything on a work machine during work hours becomes property of work. Yeah, and it depends on the company you work for. The organization that I'm a part of is very open and liberal about this stuff, and they really don't, like my trivia game, no matter how much success it has, they don't really care. They're not interested in trying to, I'm not creating anything new or patentable generally. So all of those things are where they start to get concerned. I don't think most employers are interested in your small little game. What I think they are interested in is, did you do something that is worthy of a patent? Do you have a new idea? If I thought that I did, or we've worked on some ideas, some brainstorms inside the company about things that are patentable. I think that those situations, you want to go through the proper channels and make sure that you're doing the right things. But when I'm just getting speech to come out of Alexa and saving stuff to a database, I'm not doing anything that is necessarily groundbreaking. And because of that, this all lives on my personal GitHub. I'm not doing anything that's not above board. Everybody knows what I'm doing, what I'm working on. And in order to publish a skill, I do have to go through the proper channels. And I have to have them at that point confirm with me that they do not want ownership. They do have that first right of refusal. So in order for me to publish, my account is flagged inside Amazon, and they will have to see that there was a ticket processed by legal to say, yes, he's okay to publish this. It's a weird world, man, because we are also third-party people. Even though we work first-party for our companies, we behave very often like the third-party people that we're encouraging to use our stack. And so it can be very tricky in that regard, but that's a good question. So I'm going to have a sound effect. I'm going to have the category and introduction. I'm going to have a question, and then I'm probably going to have some hold music. Where you get about 30 seconds to answer the question, maybe 15 seconds. And then after that hold music, we'll have like a, what is your answer? All of these things need to be composed, and in a perfect world, they're all randomized. So we're going to have to basically compose this entire response, which is all just one response, into at least these 5 pieces. And the sound effect is static, but it's new by category. The question is randomized. The category and introduction could be said 8 or 10 different ways, and I want to do that. The hold music, we could have 8 or 10 different tracks that we use for our hold music. And then what is your answer? This is, again, some random speech. So as we look back at our database, and we look at our speech types, we have welcome, error, goodbye, and first welcome. But we're going to quickly find ourselves jumping into having we're going to have a lot of other kinds of speech types that we can randomize. And let's see this. This is probably a dumb question, but where can I learn more about the stuff you are doing? Besides tuning into your stream, of course, and how well do I have to be at JS? I don't think that the bar is high for writing JavaScript for Alexa skills. But what I would do first, this is my recommendation for everybody, is to see if you really enjoy like experimenting and playing with Alexa. Chris, do you have an Alexa device at your house? That's my first question. You do not. Let's solve that problem first. DM me your mailing address where you can receive packages. Let's fix that problem first. That's just a personal thing for me. Let's get you on board. You don't need one to do any of this stuff, but having a device makes it a lot more fun. What I would do is honestly start with these blueprints. Impulsive EH following. Thank you for the follow. Much appreciated. This website here, blueprints.amazon.com, has a whole bunch of basically templatized ideas for Alexa skills that follow specific formats, right? So as an example, I built one called the dishwasher, and it was meant for my kids to decide who's going to empty the dishwasher today. So you go in, you create one of these. I'll go ahead and make my own. So you come in here and you add the names of the people in your household, and then you'll give it a name, and you say randomly choose a name, or it can sequentially go through them. And what happens is you just ask Alexa then at that point, hey, whose turn is it to empty the dishwasher? And she tells you, and then you have to adhere by that rule. So that's kind of a fun one to play with, especially when you have kids and chores and stuff. But another one that I really like, let me find mine because I can show you what the examples look like. There's the dishwasher. But I also have one called My Questions. And if we edit this, you can see here that I have built in some questions. This is actually one that I use for my kids' friends when they used to come over. This is not as relevant anymore with COVID because I don't have neighbors and stuff in my house. But everybody would come over. They'd want to hang out with my kids, and they'd be like, hey, Mr. Blankenberg, what's your Wi-Fi password? I want to use it. And I would make them ask Alexa, and they could say, what's the Wi-Fi password? And then she would just read whatever this is. So you could have a lot of those random questions, especially if you have guests in your house or people visiting once in a while. That kind of stuff works. So I just showed my address. That's great. But we have that for like mom and dad's phone number and that kind of stuff too. So blueprints are really, really cool. And it's a great way to start and like just make some custom stuff happen with your device. So I really like that. But there's lots of these. Different kinds of story things you can build. There's lots of games you can make. And you put all your own content in here and use it. So Chris, to start, this doesn't require any JavaScript. You just kind of follow a wizard and you can build your own custom stuff. But if you enjoy this, if you think this is cool, my next recommendation would be to, if we go to the developer console and let's go back here and look at creating a new skill. Down, we're going to choose custom. We're going to choose Alexa hosted. You don't even have to worry about hosting it, which is nice. So as I do this, one of the things that they have set up for you are a bunch of predefined templates. And this is all the code you need, which is then changeable, customizable, whatever. So you could say, hey, you know what? Mine kind of is like a fax skill, or mine is kind of like a small store or pizza ordering, or maybe it's like a weather bot. I'm calling an API to get some data. But these are full working samples. So you could bring this code down and run it and it would work for you. So you'd have a working thing. And what I find, especially when I'm not a master at something, it's nice to have something that works. And then I can rip pieces out and see what I broke. It's kind of like having a working car. And then you're like, well, what does this cable do? And you pull it out and you're like, oh, that's how the car starts. So now that doesn't work anymore. So if I plug this back in, now the car works again. So check out these templates. These are a great place to start as well because you end up with a working sample you can toy with and modify. But that's kind of where I would go. I don't think you have to be a master of JavaScript, especially for simple things. The big stuff is that you need to persist data to really make a lot of compelling, interesting experiences. And that requires you to push the data out to someplace, save it, and then retrieve it later, which, of course, JavaScript would be your thing. You can also do all of these in Python if you'd prefer to do Python, or Java if you have a language you prefer. But I know you've generally stuck to the front-end layer of things, and so you may not have Python in your back pocket either. So this is what I recommend people starting. And Kevin Evans said, Joe had a good answer during office hours, but I didn't know if you had a thought as well. I'm currently working on a medical student trivia skill, worked with some med students for their opinions and thoughts. Are you giving the response time open using audio, or keeping the response time open? So that's actually a great segue, Kevin. Thank you. That brings us back to here. That's what my hold music is. So this is an unfortunate aspect of Alexa. I really wish that there was a way that I could customize how long she will keep the microphone open. But that's because I'm a good person that acts in altruistic ways. But there are bad people that would love to just keep a microphone open for you forever and potentially hear or be able to read the things that you have spoken. And so because of that, we have a bunch of safeguards built into Alexa so that you can't just keep the microphone open for a long period of time. It's really about 7 seconds. If you're speaking, it can be longer, but you'd have to be continuously speaking. The moment it recognizes a break in your speech, it will stop recording and be done listening. So you don't have a way to set an open waiting period, like, hey, let's keep the microphone open. But what I do, especially for my trivia questions, which are somewhat challenging, is that I introduce hold music. So the concept behind hold music is that I'll have a 15-second track or a 30-second track, depending on how long I want to go. You could have varying numbers. I think you can have up to 2 minutes and 30 seconds of music or sound effects in your response. So that would be the longest you could go. But in that 15 seconds of music, what I do is I ask them the question, and then I play the 15 seconds of music. It could be a ticking clock. It could be whatever. But that 15 seconds is hard and fast. And the problem with it really is that if the user tries to answer while that hold music is playing, nothing happens. It's an unfortunate side effect of this not being able to open the microphone. So there's a couple of ways that I get around this, and we'll see it as I continue to progress here. The first option is to educate your user and let them know that, much like Jeopardy, they have to give their answer in a very specific format. So if they want to interrupt that hold music, they can do it. They just have to say their device's wake word also. So with Jeopardy, you would have to say, what is Blankenberg, right? You'd have to ask it in the form of a question. For these devices, what you have to do is say the name. I'm trying not to set all of our devices off. But you would say her name, and then you could give your answer, and that would work just fine because you're interrupting the skill, and it is immediately ready to hear your response, and then everything takes hold from there. The other option is that they just wait the 15 seconds, and then it says, okay, time's up, what's your answer? And then they can respond then. The problem is that if somebody knows the answer within the first 3 seconds, waiting 15 seconds is an eternity. And that can be kind of annoying. So you kind of have to find a nice, comfortable balance between making them wait the 15 or whatever seconds and training them that they can interrupt that at any time. And so that's one other piece that really fits in here, which is training for interruption. And that training for interruption is not something I do all the time, but it's something that I do sometimes. So I will play the 15 seconds, and I don't even know that that's in the right place. I probably don't do it right after the question because I don't want to take their mind off the question. But I might say right after the hold music, by the way, if you know the answer before the music is up, you can always say, and your answer. And this is one of the reasons that I've been fighting so hard to know, because we don't know in the manifest, we don't know in the JSON document that we receive in the request, we don't know what the user's wake word is. So it's very easy for me to say, and I'm going to say it this time, so I apologize. But if I were to say, all you have to do is say Alexa and then your answer, that works great if their wake word happens to be that name. But if they changed it to computer or Echo or Amazon, I'm actually lying to them because that won't work. They have to use their wake word. And so it's really, really kind of tricky in that regard. So Corey always uses Echo, which I think is a good move. I think all of them are pretty solid. But it's good morning, Karthik, or good evening, Karthik, to you. But I think there's still, regardless of what the wake word is, we have to give them some training to say, goodness, like you can interrupt this music. You can interrupt anything at any time using these devices. It's just that people don't always realize that. So this is the structure of what we're going to need to do. Corey, I agree with you. I also tend to lean towards male voices. I think that there's something to be said for letting people use the voice that they want in the way that they want. And I think that's probably in the next big generation of what these devices become. You're going to see more of that. I also think because of the consortium that's working to get all voices on all devices, I wouldn't be surprised if you could talk to Alexa or Echo on a Google Home device or vice versa, or have somebody else, some other assistant like Bixby in these devices as well. But it'll also allow users to have a lot more control and customization so that we have all these voices. Why not just set my default to Brian? I like the Brian voice. I'd like to use that. So
sorry, something went wrong.
I know. That's okay. I should just mute you for right now. I don't need you on attention. But I think there is some play to be done here, but it definitely provide, at least on a random basis. I don't think you need to do it every time, but maybe every 5th time or 10th time or something. Remind the user they can interrupt so that they're not frustrated by waiting. Okay, so we haven't done a whole lot yet. We've gotten our spoken words. We're also going to need to get the resolved words. So let's do that piece too. I have used the Samuel L. Jackson voice, yes. I don't use it a lot, but I have used it. But I just wish that you could go in and set your own default voice. I just think that would be cool. And there's a lot of tools that are coming out that allow you to create your own synthesized voice, which is surprisingly not difficult to do with the right kind of speech recordings and stuff. So I'm also very interested to see how that works and how you could maybe capture somebody's voice digitally and then have it speak to you. Maybe even somebody that's passed, like a grandfather or something. Do it while they're alive, get them to digitize and capture their voice. And then you could use that and be able to feel, you know, it's a little weird, and there's some odd philosophical questions around all this, but it would be kind of cool to build something where you could talk to your grandfather again and hear his voice. There's a lot of power in that. Anyway, we need to get resolved words. That's the next piece. That's what I really need to do. So let's get into Helper, and we'll create a new file called get resolved words. And we're just going to take verbatim the stuff that I have here for get resolved words, because it's a lot. And the reason that it's complex is because the entity resolution stuff is complex. I didn't do that properly at all. So this is going to be function get resolved words, handler input, slot name. And then this is going to be module.exports. Okay, and then in here, paste that. So let's bump this around a little bit. I just have a way I like to read things. That all looks good. This can go out here. The problem with Prettier and stuff is, and we've talked about this before, is that it just doesn't do it the way I want to do it, because I don't follow consistent rules, and that's my biggest problem. That can go up here. This can go up here. I brought the curlies up. Okay, cool. And then the problem with the entity resolution stuff is that there's multiple resolutions or resolution authorities, and so we need to make sure that we are getting values out of the proper, or actually out of all the resolution authorities, so that we can combine them into one list, which is kind of how I wish they'd handle it in the first place. But it is good to know where that resolution came from, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute, where we have multiple resolutions. We're not going to get there till we do dynamic entities, but this gives me all of the resolved values that come back from my resolution authorities. So that is get resolved words. And in here, we can say, let's say, that's spoken category, and then we'll do the index. Cool. Okay, that piece is done. Get resolved words is there. Don't need the helper open. We want to get resolved words, and we want handler input, and we want category. Okay, so that should get me my resolved category. Now, what this actually brings me back, if we look at what it's really returning, is the set of values. So what I'm getting back is an array. Now, I don't have any categories that overlap, but this is where I start to run into some complications with things like the Star Wars database, where when you say Skywalker, I can't just pick the first one, because what if you meant the second or the third one? So what I have to do is some kind of disambiguation where I say, oh, did you mean Shmi Skywalker or Luke Skywalker or Anakin? And by asking you that, you become more specific. You say, oh, tell me about Anakin. Now I can use those things in combination and know exactly what you're talking about. But for the categories that I have, I don't have anything that even relates to each other very closely. So it feels safer for me to just pick the one that is the most likely candidate for a match to what you're doing. Karthik, thanks for swinging by, man. Have a good rest. Would love to have... Oh, wait, we got to unpack this. Should hopefully have my streaming set up in the next couple of days, and then we'll have some good internet to watch these streams. Did you move? I haven't heard anything about you moving. But it sounds like maybe you'll have some better internet. There's so much to understand there. But if you left and you're taking off, take care, man. We'll see you next time. Okay, so we're back into this. We've got our resolutions. We need to make sure that this is actually working. So we need to get a resolved category. What I want to do, because I just want to leave get resolved words as it is. It should bring back an array. There may be times where I want multiple values. I'm going to take this little piece here, resolved category. Oh, you moved back to your hometown. That's pretty cool, man. That just for fun or for family or to get away from COVID? I know you had kind of an outbreak in your building. So I'm always curious to know, but you know, again, I don't want to get too personal on it either. If you don't want to share, that's totally fine. Resolutions per authority. I'm bringing back values. And so value that I want, this is the collection I have. So I'm going to say this in this array. So I'm going to say values 0 dot value dot name. That's what I really want. So dot value dot name. But this should still say, here's a question from the science category. I gotcha. Yeah, getting away from COVID is tough, man. Father Goblin, go enjoy some reInvent videos. That's always awesome. I tend to fill a little time with that as well. I do like what they do at reInvent. Lots of cool tech demos and stuff. So I have my resolved category here, value.name. So this should work. I should now say science. I'll say the same thing. But we should see that it's capitalized too. I think that capitalization will come through here. Or I broke everything.
It appears our trivia questions are better than our programmers. Something just broke. I'm so sorry about that.
Slot is not defined. Oh.
Or ask for a question. What should I do?
Because, here, we'll just do it this way. And we'll do the other one too. Initially, in my previous iteration of this function, I called this slot, not slot name. But for consistency's sake, I'll change those back. Okay. Get resolved words, get spoken words. And give me a science question. So we should see a capital S.
Here is a question from the science category.
Nice.
This is the question intent.
Okay, cool. So that's working. We got our science category. So we know we're resolving out to that specific thing. And now what we can do, because if we haven't resolved a category, we can't do anything. So I'm not really doing a good job of building conditionals that I'll need for this stuff, but we're going to have to start doing that here soon. So if we didn't resolve anything, let's bump all this down a little bit. We're going to say if resolved category That should be it. Just if it exists, then we're good. Else, we can, and I would be curious. I know Corey Haynes, we talked about this yesterday. If you're still here, I'm going to have and I can see an argument against this, but I'll be curious to know what you think. I have this value speak output, and this speak output is the speech or markup that I'm going to pass to Alexa that lets the things that I want said to be said. So what I generally do is I compose this. I use let instead of const, and I will append things to it over and over and over. So if, for example, if there's a resolved category, then I would do something like this. Speak output. Something like that. And then later, another conditional, I'm going to do another speak output. Plus equals more things, right? It's a second part of the sentence. And then there's going to be a third and a fourth because we need to create all of these things. So the way I see this, I'm going to lay out the options, and then I'm going to not pay attention to chat, and then I'd like to discuss if there's a fourth option or whatever. But I see this three ways. The first one is continue to append to the string that I've just demonstrated. The second one is initialize a new constant string for each piece and compose them into their own variable. So I might have, in this example, I might have something like speak out at the end. I would have const speak output equals category introduction plus what are the other ones? I'd have sound effects. So I basically piece all of these together. I'd have question, hold music, something like this, where I'm basically piecing those all together, and that's the thing that I output eventually. And then I see there being a third option, which is, and I don't know the right way to split this. Oh, Edna Liss is on today. Nice. Code It Live is fun. What was the third option that I was going to do? Continue to append to the string, compose them all together. I guess I could never compose. Wow. Just use values in output. And what that would look like is down here where I say speak.speak output, it would instead this would look a lot like this. So those options being laid out, knowing that I ultimately have to pass all of this stuff as one string back to this. What are your thoughts? I tend to lean towards the continuous iteration on the same string. But as we discussed yesterday, you never like to reset a value. So once a value's been set, the value's set, which leads me to path 2. And then it makes me wonder if I even need path 2, if I could just output my individual values together. The catch with that, with option 2 and option 3, we'll do this. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, is with 1, I don't actually need to make sure that every value is empty when I don't need it. Because there are situations in which you will have optional content, like the training for interruption. So for that one, I have to make sure that I provide nothing. I still have to create the variable. I still have to make sure that it's nothing. And then when I append things around it, like it'll just not be there. But I never know if there's like a blessed way to approach this problem. I think that there are lots of ways to approach this problem, as I've just demonstrated. But I feel like I want this to be as consumable and readable as possible. Okay, so Corey likes options 2 or 3. And it ultimately, 3 and 2 are really the same. It's just that in one case I create a variable and output that, and in the other one I just output the combination of the variables. Okay, I can live with that. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I think that's why I'm going through this exercise. That's why I asked. I wanted to make sure that I'm thinking about this properly, and I think you're correct in that regard. So, right. So we're going to take this and kill it. And down here at the very bottom, right before this, we're going to say const speak output equals. And the first thing that it's going to have is sound effects. We need to figure out what our sound effect's going to be. So let's create a sound effect, const sound effect. And for now, that's going to be that. But that lets us compose this. So sound effect is our first variable. So now we have the struggle of figuring out, well, okay, cool. I've got this resolved category. We'll get to that piece in a second. I need to know how to refer to these sound effects. So it's pretty easy to do to make sound effects play. I always want to make sure I get the Alexa sound effect SSML. So in the sound effects world, which is audio, you do something like this. And by doing that, you automatically end up with a sound effect that, in this case, sounds like a car accelerating. So we should hear the sound effect of the car accelerating, and ultimately we'd want to replace this with the sound effect that comes from our category. So the trick I have here is, where do I store this data? Because I technically get the name of the category and the ID of the category from my resolution. So in here, when we resolve out to science, I have the category ID and the name of the category. So I don't need to call my database or do anything fancy to be able to say, here's a question from the science category. I just already know that. It's been resolved. It's part of the mechanism that happens inside Alexa. But the thing that I don't have in there, and I don't have an easy way to grab, is what is the URL of the sound effect that I use for that category? So it makes me want to, I'm going to have to put that data statically somewhere. The question is, I wonder if I could get away with not putting it statically somewhere and just infer the URLs based on the locations and that specific value. So as we looked at my S3 earlier, we were looking at my audio files, and they all are here. They all have their lowercase name and like art and stage, food and drink. The problem I have there, let's back this up. The problem I have with those categories, let's see if I give me a other question. This may break because I was writing code.
Here is a question from the art and stage category.
Oh, maybe
this is the question intent.
Maybe I was smarter than I thought. So it looks like I put and. I thought I put ampersand in here, but in fact I did not. So art and stage, and if you look at my values here, I have art and stage. So I would just need to replace spaces with underscores, business world, design, film, food and drink. And maybe then I could just infer the URLs because they'll all be the same. They'll all look exactly like this. So I wonder if I could just infer that rather than having to have the static value. That would make my life a whole lot easier. Naming conventions can make a huge impact in that regard. All right, Corey, I'm going to bring you back one more time, or anybody else that has an opinion on this. I'm going to bring you back one more time. So how do I want to handle this situation? I have this sound effect value, right? This is static in here. It's got to live this way. If I get a category, right? I just used the word if, a conditional. If I have a resolved category, then I'm going to have values like this. But if I don't have a resolved category, I'm not going to have this. I'm not going to even say this. I'm going to say something else over here like that isn't a category. And so I end up with some scoping issues. This is really what I'm concerned about here, is that I have like, well, I'll leave that just because I need that syntax. But right here, do I drop a bunch of empty variables and then in here set the values for them? Because if I do const sound effect in here, well, now I'm stuck with the scope of only living here. So it feels like I've got to initialize them in the appropriate scope, but then I've got to define them somewhere else. And I'm hoping that there's just some magic. Sound effect is different if I have a resolved category. Yes, I only really have a sound effect if there is a resolved category. How about that? There is no value for sound effect if there is no resolved category. Because I don't know what sound effect to play if I don't have a category. And if there is no category at all, we don't play a sound effect. We just tell the person that that's not a category that exists. So yeah, that's where this gets a little weird. Yes, I have an error condition that is basically just, hey, well, you don't have a category. And I have an error speech, a guard clause, right? But this is just based on what we were talking about yesterday. If I have no category, then I want to make sure I understand this. So maybe I'm just not familiar enough with the phrase guard clause, but if there's a resolved category, do this. No, I do still have to do the rest of the function. All that will be left is really this. I still have to return speech. So even though it's an error or whatever, I'm still returning speech. I'm just returning different speech. But it feels weird to like put an exit condition right here when I could just, I don't know. You think I should just exit here? Like this should be the exit clause? And then everything else lives inside this if condition? Okay. I can get on board with that. I see. Okay. So you're suggesting something that looks like this. And if I don't have a resolved category, then we're going to basically do this. We're just going to say spoken word. We're going to need spoken category. We're going to say something like, oh, right. Yeah, I wouldn't even need to wrap it. That's good. So if I don't have a resolved category, then we're going to say, uh-oh, or something. We don't have a category for whatever it is you said. You can always ask for the list of categories. If you're not sure, you can always ask for the list of categories. You can always ask for the list of categories or ask for a random question to. I'm going to have to improve this at some point anyway, but that's fine for now. So I have my little condition. I think I'll take this and like that. And then this becomes no category speech. And same for this. And then we have our little response there. And we can probably even just simplify. I don't normally do this, but I don't want to look at all that code all the time. So this becomes gone. Yeah, no, that would be easy enough to extract out. There aren't a lot of situations like this. Most of the handlers are going to have it. Well, if they didn't give me this thing, then I'm going to go do this other thing. Once, I think more than anything else. So this all goes away, and then we start talking about. Now we can say const sound effect, because now we are in a condition where we will only ever have a resolved category. And we're going to set this up to be all of this, but instead the URL, which I've already lost, we'll go get that again, is this. And that will go right here. So we'll make sure it works first. We'll just use our sports and games sound effect. This goes away. And this was just pseudocode stuff for earlier. Need some decisions on this. And so we have const sound effect. Then we're going to have category introduction, so we can bring that down here too. Sound effect plus. This is where I start to worry about space delimiters too. For a sound effect, it's fine, but for other things, I always try to put a space at the end of my lines. Otherwise, you end up matching sentences together. And she reads the period as a dot instead of a break in speech. So, and then speak output, we're just going to get rid of you for this one we don't need. So we have sound effect and category introduction for right now, which is great. Sound effect, this is nothing. And category introduction. Here's a question from the resolved category. Now, we're eventually going to get randomized speech for all of these, and we'll be filling in the actual category name here, which is pretty easy to do. But for now, let's see if that works. Give me a theater question.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
That's pretty impressive, what I did right there. Are you good? Doesn't feel like you've gone all the way. Try that again. Normally it gives me the little message that says this will be open for 1 hour. There we go. I don't know why that didn't happen the first time. Open Jeff's trivia game.
Welcome to TKO Trivia, the trivia game show where you answer difficult questions and win nothing. Each day, you can play a new 10-question challenge, but be careful, because if you get one wrong... Here is a question from the art and stage category.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Wrap in an array, join with single space trick for that. That's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. Okay, we may end up there. Okay, so two spaces don't matter, but having one space does matter. If I separate two words with only a period between them, Alexa will say word 1 dot word 2, like a URL or something like that. So I have to have dot space in order for her to just treat it like a period and put that little breath in between two sentences. Let's figure out how to get this. We just want to replace the name of the resolved category. We want to replace the spaces. So we're going to say resolved. Here, we should do this first. Const category. Stop picking through that. Okay. Category name goes here. We can easily see what's going on. Category name dot replace. We're going to replace space with an underscore. We're also going to do a 2 lower case. All right, let's see if that works. That should be enough. I mean, I'm just taking my category name, which is arts and science or whatever. I'm replacing any spaces with underscores. So if there aren't any spaces, then I won't have any underscores. And we should end up with the right sound effect for the right category. Let's see. Give me a theater question.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
What didn't you like? Cannot read property SSML of undefined. What? This is not an error that's related to my code. It just keeps... I mean, I'm sure it is related to my code, but it's... it doesn't happen every time.
Sorry, I don't know that.
This is TKO Trivia.
There was a problem with the requested skills response.
You're saying that SSML doesn't exist. I mean, this is the same thing that we looked at yesterday. It's already 11:30. We're not going to get to our first question. Request interceptor, response interceptor. It's only 10:30. I wish. I got to do office hours here in a half an hour. Alexa office hours with me today on the Alexa channel at noon. And I probably should eat something too. Man, I don't know why that's happening. It should always be there. I don't understand why that happens. That's something for me to dig into for sure. Well, let's get ourselves a question from the database. That's something I can do in just a couple of minutes, I think. So we'll get random question should always take a category. I think we didn't finish this part because we never called get random question. So in the question intent, we need to get const question is going to be a thing that we're going to do like await data.get random question. The category is actually going to be what is the resolution for that? Value.id. Okay. So this is value.id. Cool. So I have category ID and category name. So for get random question, I want the category ID. And that's maybe it. What else do I have in get random question? Oh, and locale. I guess that makes sense. Do I need to pass that in? I do. So category ID and helper.get locale. Okay. So that calls out to a function that doesn't exist or doesn't function properly yet, where I have get random questions. So the piece that I need here, let's go look at the Alexa version. Let's find something where I get user record or something. And I want now let's find something else. And user ID, yeah, this is what I want. And user ID equals that thing to there. Okay. So if we jump into this code base, don't care about speech type, do care about locale. We should be able to drop this right here. And then instead of user, it's going to be category. And this is going to be, I guess I should call it category ID. Category ID. So that, I mean, this should work. I have category equals category ID. Is disabled is false. Locale is English. Get me the thing. And then that's getting me questions from that category. But what I actually want to do is then get a random item from that record and return the voice question. No, I want to return the whole record. I want to return the whole record. I need all that stuff. So return item. Okay, so that returns to me my entire question object based on the category that I've selected. And then I should be able to say question speech equals question dot question dot fields dot voice question. And down here, I could say, just so we can do the thing I said I was going to do today, question speech.
For help, please visit.
This is TKO Trivia. If you thought Jeopardy was challenging, you're in for a treat.
Something is definitely very broken. If only I could fix it myself. Sorry for the inconvenience. I've notified our developers.
Okay, so we're running into this.
Over. What would you like to do now?
Cannot read properly request envelope of undefined. Oh. Okay.
Something is definitely very broken. If only I could fix it myself. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Data.getRandomQuestion is not
Let's
a thing?
start over.
Did I not
What
add
would
it
you
to
like to do now?
There we go. And one more time, please.
Something is definitely very broken. If only I could fix it myself. Sorry for the inconvenience. I've notified our developers.
In question intent, you're saying fields.
What would you like to do now?
What? We are getting a random question, and we're returning that individual item.
Whoops. It looks like one of our programmers broke something. I will let them know and have them fix it as soon as possible. In the meantime, you can always ask for a random question or start a new quiz, right?
So it's not bringing the data back that I expect it to bring back. Wonder why that is. The table's called question, right? I did that part right. Question. Okay. See what this gets us.
Whoops. It looks like one of our programmers broke something. I will let them know and have them fix it as soon as possible.
So I'm not even getting any records back. So there's something wrong with my query.
Question or start a new quiz, right?
What if I just do this?
Something is definitely very broken. If only I could fix it myself. Sorry for the inconvenience.
Yeah, I'm just not getting any records back.
I've notified our developers. Let's start over. What would you like to do now?
Okay, I have to go off screen for just a second. We're going to try this again. Get the URL that it's calling and make sure that the query is working properly and all the responsible things. There's definitely no records there. It's got to be how I'm trying to find the category. And it is. That's working fine otherwise. So if I look at my, is it maybe my data? I'm passing in one that ends in JNN, and my science one ends in JNN, and my questions are assigned a category. All of that looks good. I know you guys can't see this part, but API keys and all that. How is that not in category? Man, oh man, I gotta go too. Check one more thing here. Yeah, see, it exists there. Category. It's in there. Why would this URL structure not work? Okay, one more thing to try here. Maybe this will work. Category, science. Still no. Man. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I've got to revisit. Like, I need to spend more time on my query, apparently. Thank you, Alpha Lunar V1. Thank you for the follow. All right, so I guess that's that for today. I really thought we were going to get a question in here, but we struggled with a few things, and so we weren't able to do it. No, I don't want that. I want this. So the problem that we have is right here in like referencing the category. If I just want a random question from any category, this works great. But for whatever reason, this chunk right here is not doing what I want. And I think if I did, well, I'd have to do some work on this because of the naming conventions and stuff that I use. Anyway, I've got to throw this away for right now. I'm going to stop debugging and save some stuff. I'll be back here in 15 minutes, though, on the Amazon Alexa channel. We're doing office hours. So catch us over there. And we'll be back at this first thing in the morning. See you all then. Actually, let's do let's do a little raid if there's anyone around. Yeah, we'll go to Code It Live. We'll send you guys over there where Chris went earlier. So we'll start a raid. And as soon as it's ready, we'll go. All right. Thanks, everybody. I will. Hopefully, I'll see you in about 15 minutes. Take care. Bye.
.user. So I just said actor. I don't know.
I will be nesting users all day long. Just to let you know, that's how I